Bhatinda. Dr. Virender Singh has done MSc from Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra, and he has done PhD from Central Drug Research Institute, Lucknow. His area of research has been synthetic organic chemistry and medicinal chemistry. Now he will share his experience with respect to the synthetic organic chemistry, medicinal chemistry, and his area of his talk of the research is regents in organic synthesis. I, on behalf of Department of Chemistry, Dyal Singh College, Karnal, from all teachers and on behalf of students, extend my warm welcome to Dr. Virender Singh. Welcome, Dr. Virender Singh.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you,
Welcome.
sir.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Over to Dr. Akshay Kumar.
Thank you, Bhatti sir. Now I request our senior faculty, Professor Sandeep Kumar, to give a brief introduction to our eminent speaker. Sandeep sir.
A very good morning to Dr. Bhatti sir, Dr. Akshay, Dr. Suman ma'am, Kapil, and all my other faculty members as well as all the students. And a very warm welcome, Dr. Virender Singh. This is my privilege to introduce Dr. Virender Singh. Dr. Virender Singh has done his graduation and post-graduation from Kurukshetra University, Kurukshetra. He was gold medalist in MSc Chemistry. He qualified CSIR JRF 4 times and get with 97.3 percentile and completed his PhD from Central Drug Research Institute, CDRI, Lucknow in 2011 in synthetic organic and medicinal chemistry. He got Best Thesis Award from CSIR CDRI, Lucknow. After PhD, he joined the Central University of Punjab, Bhatinda in 2011 and worked as assistant professor for a period of 1 year. Thereafter, he moved to Department of Chemistry, NIT Jalandhar in 2012 and worked for 8 years as assistant professor. In 2020, he moved back to Central University of Punjab, Bhatinda as associate professor in chemistry. His area of research is synthetic organic and medicinal chemistry. Dr. Singh has published more than 62 research papers in peer-reviewed international journals and 2 book chapters. He has also participated in 32 national and international conferences. At present, 2 research projects are ongoing and 3 research projects funded by SARB CSIR has been completed. Presently, 6 students are pursuing their PhD under his supervision and 4 have completed. 23 MSc students have completed their master's project. He has 10 years of teaching experience and post-PhD research experience. He has got 2 several awards like Dr. M.M. Dhar Memorial Award, Professor S.M. Mukherjee Award for Excellence in Chemistry, Nandlal Teresa Memorial Award from Indian Council of Chemists, Young Scientist Award from Him Science Congress Association, and he was also selected for DS Kothari and prestigious CSIR Nehru Postdoc Fellowship. Again, a very warm welcome, sir. On the behalf of Chemistry Association, Dyal Singh College, we are all welcome you, sir. Over to Dr. Akshay, sir.
And now, before moving ahead, I would like to add something that Dr. Virender is also an excellent badminton player and he has keen interest in yoga also. So it is also a motivating thing for our young students that they can that excellence is present. When you are excellent in one thing, you are excellent in everything. A brief look at the number of publications, you can see that the total citation, indirect total citation, it is near about 1257. It is a mark of a good researcher, and I must say the H index and I10 index, it is a marker of the research that Professor Virender is undergoing, the good quality research is undergoing. I request Professor Virender Singh to please present his today's lecture. Sir, mic is your platform is yours. Please, sir. Okay. Dr. Virender Singh.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir. At the outset, I would like to thank the principal of Dayal Singh College giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with you, and all the members of organizing committee, especially Sandeep ji, the head of the department chemistry, Professor Bhatti, Dr. Suman, and other members of organizing committee, Kapil ji, Dr. Akshay Kumar, Dr. Kokil, Dr. Mona Dika, and I'm very, very grateful to Sandeep ji for giving me this opportunity to share some of my say MSc work with the students. Actually, I have chosen MSc topic, not my research work, because I know that research work will be able to understand only PhD students could understand that. Only 10% of audience will be able to understand that. I thought that it would be better that I present some MSc students can have a kind of revision that they have learned during the 2 years at MSc. So I have chosen reagents in organic synthesis, and I will be going to discuss some oxidizing and reducing agents, and I have covered these topics. Okay, so very brief introduction about the oxidation. As all of you know that oxidation is the loss of electron, or you can say addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. All three comes under oxidation. Okay. So in daily life, we see some kind of processes like rusting of iron. Simply iron is converted into iron oxide, just a combination of iron with oxygen. Okay, energy from the food. In our body, many oxidative processes take place, and you know the food is oxidized, okay, to finally CO2 and H2O and other byproducts. Energy from the battery and burning of fuel. All these are oxidative processes, and they involve either addition of oxygen, either loss of electron, or dehydrogenation. Okay, so why reagents are important? Okay, the reagents are important because success of modern organic synthesis that relies on the selection and implementation of a proper reagent. We want to achieve a desired transformation. We want to convert a particular functional group into another functional group. For that, we need some reagent. We have to carry out a specific transformation, and that also in a selective manner and with a high yield. That is why it is a challenging task to find a proper reagent. So variety of so across the globe, researchers have worked, and they have discovered various reagents that we can use for various organic transformation. Okay, so good quality, the quality of a good reagent is that it should be eco-friendly. It should cause minimum harm to the environment. So sometimes we don't have any option, but we have to use a toxic reagent also because we want to achieve the final product. The reagent should also be versatile. It should be able to work under the variety of conditions, like at room temperature, under heating condition, or at a very low temperature, or in different solvent. So that versatility should also be with a reagent, and it should be target specific. Okay, it should be able to convert a particular functional group. And last thing, the workup should be minimum, should take minimum efforts, or it should be less tedious. Accordingly, plenty of reagents are available in organic synthesis, and what you have read during your program, many those reagents. Oxidation of hydrocarbons. Okay, you know hydrocarbons are just compounds which contain only carbon and hydrogen. So alkane, alkene, and alkynes, or aromatic system comes under this category. Okay, so first we will be discussing about the oxidation of hydrocarbons, and mainly the oxidation of alkene, alkyne, aromatic alkyl substituent located in the aromatic ring. So we can divide oxidation into two categories: partial oxidation and complete oxidation. Okay, you can see here, this is phenoxide ion. When we treat it with potassium hexacyanophenol, it gets oxidized into phenoxide radical. Complete oxidation, one electron is lost. Okay. However, when carbon is attached with a highly electronegative atom like you can say carbon is attached with a halogen or chloride or bromide. In that case, carbon carry delta positive charge. So some electrons have been removed from that carbon. So that is also comes under the category of oxidation, but that is just partial oxidation. Okay. So we will be discussing the oxidation of alkene, where C double bond C can be converted into epoxide. We can oxidize it to dye. Okay. Then we can also cleave the C double bond C. That is a oxidation process. Okay. So first we will be discussing the epoxidation. Epoxidation is basically of two types. It can take place through two mechanisms: electrophilic oxidation and the nucleophilic oxidation. First, we will be discussing the electrophilic oxidation. This is an alkene molecule and this is a peracid. We can also say it peroxy acid. This oxygen is highly electrophilic in nature. It is electron deficient. This alkene is electron rich, and this oxygen can be transferred from this peracid to the alkene. Accordingly, the alkene gets converted into an epoxide, while a peracid gets converted into a simple acid. Overall, just this oxygen, you can say this green one oxygen is transferred to alkene and we get an epoxide. Okay. So it is easy to break this oxygen-oxygen bond. The reason is that this bond is very not a strong bond, and due to the electrophilic nature of this oxygen, this is a weak bond and can be easily broken. Any weak nucleophile, alkene is not a strong nucleophile. Yeah, alkene is a weak nucleophile and it can also attack this electrophilic oxygen. Okay. Now mechanism for the electrophilic epoxidation. You can see here, this is a peroxy acid. This is the electron deficient or this attack. Always a electron rich system attacks a electron deficient system. So in this case also, first this alkene attacks over this oxygen atom, makes a bond, then this oxygen becomes electron rich and it back attacks this carbon. Okay. This process basically proceeds through a concerted method. Okay, and overall the product is an acid and an epoxy. Now reactivity order of the alkene. A more substituted is the alkene, or a more electron rich is the alkene, more is the reactivity. You can say tetra substituted alkene is more reactive than di substituted. Okay, and that di substituted on the two carbon atoms is more reactive than a alkene having two similar substituents on the same atom. Okay, so that is also difference between the two. And it has been found that in fact this tetra substituted alkene is around 6,500 times more reactive than simple ethene. Okay, so this is about the reactivity order of alkene. Similar to that, the electron deficiency of the electrophilic oxygen also affect in case of peracids. More electron deficient is the oxygen atom, more will be the reactivity of a peracid. You can see trifluoroPeracetic acid is more reactive than simple peracetic acid. Similarly, metachloroperbenzoic acid is more reactive than we call it MCPBA, metachloroperbenzoic acid. Okay. So both way, the reactivity of alkene as well as the reactivity of the peracid affect the rate of a reaction. Okay, both control the rate of reaction. Okay, this is simply shown. Nucleophile attacks this peracid. Okay, and it removes oxygen from here. Now, how can we synthesize a peroxy acid? Okay. We have trifluoroacetic anhydride. Similarly, we can have acetic anhydride. We treat it with hydrogen peroxide. Okay, and that oxygen, one oxygen is transferred from this hydrogen peroxide to the anhydride. We have a peroxy acid and a simple acid. Okay, but hydrogen peroxide that is used during this transformation should be highly concentrated. Say nearly 70% it should be at least 70% concentration. Okay, it is used as aqueous solution, but it should be highly concentrated. Only then this transformation can be achieved. Okay. There are some more examples. This is derivative. When you treat it with metachloroperbenzoic acid, MCPBA, we get to epoxide. Okay, and a per acid gets converted into a simple acid, carboxylic. Okay, here is the mechanism, and this reaction takes place through a concerted type of mechanism. Intermediates, say cation or anions, are not isolated. Okay, the same way, first this alkene attacks this electron deficient oxygen, then this oxygen become electron rich, then it back attacks this double bond. Okay, at the same time, the C double bond O oxygen, its lone pair abstract this hydrogen atom. So this hydrogen gets transferred to here. Alkene gets converted into an epoxide. Okay, and peroxide converted into simple carboxylic. Okay. It has been found that epoxidation process is stereospecific and as well as regiospecific. Okay, stereospecific term is used when a fate of a product is decided by the starting material. When starting material decide the fate of the final product, reaction is known as stereospecific. Here you can see we have a trans-stilbene. When it is treated with MCPBA, in final product, 2 phenyl rings, they are also trans. In starting material, they are trans. In final product also, they are trans. So reaction is stereospecific. Similarly, if they are cis, in final product also they are. So reaction is, this epoxidation is stereospecific in nature. Okay. Here is the relative rate of reaction of alkene. As I mentioned earlier also, this is simple ethene. This is methyl substituted. 2 methyls are present. 2 methyls on the same atom. Okay. 3 methyls and tetramethyl substituted ethene. So you can say rate of reactivity. If it is 1, it is 24 and it is 6500. So more electron rich is the alkene, more is its reactivity.
आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही है।
मैम अभी भी नहीं आ रही है? शुरू से नहीं आ रही मैम, अभी नहीं आ रही।
सर ऑडिबल है मे बी बेटा, आपकी कोई शायद नेटवर्क इशू होगा। ऑडिबल है सर।
ऑडिबल है सर, ऑडिबल है। You may continue, sir. Dr. Virendra, sir, you may continue, sir. Dr. Virendra, sir, am I audible?
Hello.
Anji sir, you are audible, sir. You may continue, sir.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay. So more substituted alkene get epoxidized at a faster rate. Okay. Now this epoxidation also has been found to be regiospecific in nature. What is regiospecificity? Okay. When in a molecule there are 2 regions where the attacking species can attack. When possibility at one site is more, one is less, but at both the sites attack can take place, then reaction is regiospecific. Here this double bond can also be epoxidized and this double bond can also be epoxidized. However, if we use just 1 mole of MCPBA, only this more electron rich double bond get epoxidized and it remain unaffected. So in this way, the reaction is regiospecific in nature. Okay. Similarly, here both are equivalent, but still one get epoxidized. If we use only one equivalent of per. Okay. Sometime it has been found that a buffer solution is used. Okay, to maintain the pH of the medium, because you know that in this case MCPBA. The final product will be benzoic acid, metachloroperbenzoic acid will be converted into metachlorobenzoic acid. Means acid is a product, So that will increase the acidity of a medium. Okay. If we use a trifluoroperoacetic acid, that will generate the TFA, trifluoroacetic acid. So that is strongly acidic in nature. So in that case, medium will become highly acidic in nature. If medium is acidic, epoxide may further undergo various reactions that will be discussed later. Okay. So in some cases, we need some additives. Okay. We need buffer solution to maintain the pH, so that the medium is not highly acidic and silent reactions can be prevented. Okay. So here is another example. This dimethyl dioxidane. This is dimethyl dioxidane. Okay. How it is? We take acetone, we treat it with KHSO5. We get dimethyl dioxidane, and it is also a very good epoxidizing. It can also easily transfer one of its oxygen. Okay. So you can see this molecule. This molecule have multiple double bonds, but this alkenic double bond gets easily epoxidized and it gets converted into epoxide. Okay. It has been found that in nature also there are certain fungi which produce polycyclic compounds. Okay. And those polycyclic compounds by themselves are converted into the epoxide, or by nature or by aerial oxidation they are converted into epoxide. And these epoxides are highly reactive molecule, and if they are inhaled, they can bind with the DNA, and they are highly fatal, and they are also carcinogenic in some cases. Okay. So you also know that polyaromatic hydrocarbons like phenanthine, chrysene, okay, or other polycyclic aromatic compounds, they are carcinogenic in nature. Why it is so? Benzene is also carcinogenic in nature. Why it is so? Okay. When we inhale these polyaromatic hydrocarbons, what happens in our liver? They metabolize, and one or more double bond get converted into an epoxide. Okay. If that epoxide remain as such and it binds with our DNA, a covalent bond is formed. You know, covalent bond is a highly stable bond. In that case, what happens? The DNA binds with the epoxide. Covalent bond is formed. Either that cell will not divide and it will die. That is good. But if that cell survives and that epoxide remains bonded with it, okay, in that case, that cell becomes cancerous. It loses its controlled mechanism of division and it starts dividing in an uncontrolled manner. Okay, and that leads to the cancer. That is why polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and we call them PAH, okay, they are carcinogenic in nature, because inside our body or inside the liver it gets epoxidized. Then it may become carcinogenic if their concentration is high. Okay, but if their concentration is less, most of them get further hydroxylated. Okay. So here is the example. You can see this is the benzene in our liver. If we inhale it, okay, say in small quantity, in our liver the oxygen get bonded with it and it gets converted into epoxide. Okay, this epoxide, if suppose it is formed in a small amount, okay, it can be further hydroxylated and get converted into this diol, and it can easily pass from the body, okay, through the urine, because it's polar molecule and it can be easily passed through the kidney. But suppose we have inhaled or we have taken this benzene in excess, may not be hydrolyzed. Okay, and in that case it becomes cancerous. If it binds with the DNA, it becomes cancerous in nature. Okay, and this way it can damage the DNA. Okay, this was all about the electrophilic epoxidation. Okay, where electrophilic oxygen from the per acid binds with an alkene and we get an epoxide. And in all these processes, the final product, that is epoxide, is basically a racemic product. Okay. The reason is that we are not providing any chiral environment. If our reactant or reagent or catalyst is not chiral, we are not going to get a final chiral product. We will be getting a racemic product. Okay. So that was all about the electrophilic epoxidation. Now nucleophilic epoxidation. Okay. nucleophilic epoxidation can be conducted with hydrogen peroxide. When we treat hydrogen base like KOH or NaOH, okay, it can abstract this H, and we have HO2 negative, that is a strong nucleophile, and it can easily undergo Michael addition, okay, but it does not simply attack the simple double bond, okay, it is a Michael acceptor only, okay. So like cyclohexanone, it is a good Michael acceptor and it undergo 1,4 addition, okay. First we get this intermediate, okay, it attacks at this double bond, that is 1,4 addition, then this double bond migrates and this is O negative. Again these electrons come back and they back attack this oxygen atom, okay. This is happening here, okay, and we get this epoxide, okay. So there is question, as we had seen in case of electrophilic epoxidation, reaction was stereospecific in nature and reaction was also regiospecific in nature, stereospecific as well as regiospecific in case of electrophilic epoxidation. But in case of nucleophilic epoxidation, reaction is not stereospecific. You can see here, this is a cis alkene, okay, cis alkene. This is also a cis alkene, okay. This has cis product, cis epoxide, but in this case we are getting trans epoxide, means stereochemistry of the starting material is not deciding the stereochemistry of the final product. Stereochemistry is changed, means reaction is not at all stereospecific in nature, okay. While in case of MCPBA, metachloroperbenzoic acid, where epoxidation was following a electrophilic mechanism, okay, reaction was completely stereospecific in nature. Cis alkene gave the cis product, trans gave the trans product, okay. So remember this thing, that in case of nucleophilic epoxidation, stereochemistry of final product changes, okay. Why it changes? Here is the answer, okay. You can see first this hydrogen peroxide anion attacks in a Michael addition manner, okay, and this anion intermediate is formed. Now you can see this double bond that was earlier double bond here into the single bond, and there is always a free rotation around a single bond. So in this case, there is steric congestion. This phenyl and SO2 pH group, they are sterically congested, and they can rearrange themselves, okay, so that a more stable intermediate is formed. It rearranges, okay, and this negative charge again back attacks this oxygen atom, and we get this epoxide. So a cis alkene give a trans epoxide, okay. So this way, that is the reason that stereochemistry it is changed, okay. In case of electrophilic epoxidation, reaction proceeds through a concerted mechanism. Here reaction is following a ionic mechanism, and an intermediate is generated. This intermediate can rearrange itself, okay. So that is the reason, okay. Here it is Z-enone, okay. It has been found that Z-enones comparatively react slowly as compared to the E-enones, okay, and when a nucleophilic epoxidation takes place, the product is same, mechanism is also same, okay. Here is the epoxidation, electrophilic epoxidation. You can see this is an E alkene, we get E product. We have Z alkene, we get Z product, okay. That is just an example, okay. So characteristic of epoxidation is electrophilic epoxidation, stereospecific and regiospecific. You can again see in this molecule there is a double bond that is tri-substituted. Here this double bond is di-substituted. This is more electron rich, so epoxidation takes place at this selectively. But 50% attack from above the face, 50% below the face take place, okay. These are some more examples. Okay. In case of cyclic alkenes, okay, the addition of oxygen takes place on the double bond from the less hindered side. This is a cyclic system, and here configuration of the molecule is fixed. Okay, this methyl substituent is above the plane, so front face will face the steric hindrance when it is attacking the double bond. So in that case, it preferably attack from back of the face. Okay, similarly in this case, this acetate is above the face, and the main attack will take place from below the face. Okay, so here selectivity is achieved. Okay. See this example carefully. From net point of view, it is important. Okay, you can see here we are treating a alkene with a peracid. Okay, here the substituent is acetate, OAC. Here it is OH. The difference is that here it is OH, here it is OAC. OH has been just acetylated in this case. So if this OAC is above the plane, this peracid will attack below the face. However, if there is OH, always attack will take from the same face, okay, from the same side. Reason is that there is a transition state is formed where OH participates. Okay, so you must remember this example. It have been asked 2-3 times in the previous NET and GATE exams. Okay, when this OH is above the plane, this epoxide will also formed from the same face. Okay, reason is this OH coordinates with this oxygen atom, and that electrophilic oxygen is transferred from the same face. Okay, OH has a better coordinating property than a double bond. Okay, here is the stereoselective reactions of acyclic alkene. Okay, here we have a chiral center. Okay, this molecule is a chiral molecule, and we subject it to NCPBA. You can see here, here it is a double bond, but this substituent is bulky and it is above the face. So mainly this product will be formed, and they are formed in the ratio of 95:5. Okay, so high stereoselectivity is achieved in this case. Okay. See another example where we have OH. Okay, at allylic position, and we have a double bond. So in this case also, this OH at allylic position will control the selectivity of the product that is formed. This OH will coordinate with MCPBA, and epoxidation will take place from same face. Okay, you can see here it is above the plane. This OH is above the plane. This product is formed as a minor. Here is the explanation. You can see here this OH is above the face. Okay, above the plane. It is coordinating through this hydrogen. It is making hydrogen bonding with the electrophilic oxygen atom. Okay, and that is the reason that it attacking from the same face only. This OH is above the face here. So this oxygen will also be transferred from above the face. Okay, and this epoxide will be formed. The final product. So these two questions are generally asked in the exam. Then reactions of the epoxide, you know very well that epoxide strain ring system. Okay, strain ring system, and this oxygen is also present. That is also electronegative atom that can stabilize negative charge. So when we subject it to acidic condition, acidic hydrolysis can be achieved very easily, and we get a 1,2-trans-diol. Okay, so 1,2-trans-diol can be synthesized by epoxidation followed by hydrolysis under acidic condition. Okay, so this is again the same mechanism. Okay, so about selectivity, there are 3 main types of selectivity: chemoselectivity, regioselectivity, and stereoselectivity. Chemo, regio, and stereo. These 3 words itself explain what are they. Okay, chemo means there are 2 chemical functional groups. Okay, 2 chemical sites, 2 functional groups, and where one functional group react and other don't react. So that is chemoselectivity. Chemo means functional group. Okay, regio means region. There are two locations on the molecule where reaction can take place, like 1,4 addition and 1,2 addition. Then stereoselectivity, how the reactant reacts, okay, and how the product will be formed. One is formed in a major amount, other is formed in the minor. Okay, so this is the example of chemoselectivity. Sorry, regioselectivity. Here you can see that when this acetanilide derivative is treated with bromine in acetic acid, its bromination can take place at ortho position as well as the para position. Okay, ortho as well as para, but at ortho position there is steric hindrance. Okay, so selectively bromination takes place at the para position only, and this product is obtained in the high yield and exclusive product. So that is the regioselectivity. Okay. Another example of regioselectivity, you have Michael acceptor molecules. Okay, here if it is 1,4 addition and here it is 1,2 addition, either can take place. Okay, conjugate addition or direct addition. That is decided by the nucleophile. Okay, you can see this carbon is basically a hard acidic site. This is a soft acidic site. Okay, this electron deficient, so we can call it a hard acid here, soft acidic site. Okay, if your nucleophile is a soft nucleophile, say carbon containing nucleophile, okay, that will prefer to attack at the soft nucleophile, means soft base. Soft base will attack at the soft acidic site, while a hard acid will be attacked by the hard base like oxygen, nitrogen, electronegative atoms, okay, which are less polarizable, more electronegative. Okay, so this is about the regioselectivity. Example of regioselectivity. Okay, we have this para-amino phenol. When we treat it with excess of acetic anhydride, okay, and we reflux in toluene, both OH and NH2 get acetylated, and there is no selectivity. Okay, both the functional groups acetylated. Okay, however, if we want to achieve the chemoselectivity, in this case there are two functional groups, so there will be a matter of chemoselectivity. Suppose we want to selectively acetylate this NH2, we will use the neutral condition, okay, or just weak basic condition, weakly basic conditions, okay, say pyridine and one equivalent of acetic anhydride. So in this case, this NH2 will be acetylated because this NH2. But what if we want to epoxidize? We want to acetylate this OH. We have to use a strong base, some lithium salt. The property lithium have? Lithium makes a localized ion. Okay, this is O negative, lithium oxide. Okay, LiO. Localized negative charge will remain there, and in that case, even in presence of NH2, we can acetylate OH selectively. This NH2 remain unaffected. Okay, under mild basic condition, this NH2 will be acetylated. Under strong acidic condition, this will be acetylated. We can and this molecule is basically a paracetamol. Okay, you know very well. We have this have been used a lot during this corona time. Okay, and this paracetamol can also be this double acetylated product also by its selective hydrolysis. You can see when we treat it with the aqueous NaOH. This is amide bond, this is ester bond. Okay, you know ester is more reactive, though, so as compared to the amide. So being more electrophilic, this carbon, so it gets so selective hydrolysis of ester can be achieved in presence of amide. So again, we can also synthesize this paracetamol simply from this molecule. So either of route can be followed for using this synthesis of this drug molecule. Here, it is an example of again regioselective. Okay, we have lithium salt of lithium acetylide. Okay, acetylide ion, anion. It can attack this keto as well as it can also attack this ester. Okay, but if we use just one equivalent of this acetylide derivative, it will attack at this ketone only. Okay, because ketone is more electrophilic than the ester, and we get this alcohol. Okay. Reactivity of carbonyl compounds toward nucleophile. Aldehydes are most reactive. Okay, there are aldehyde. If we exclude acid chloride, aldehyde, which are more reactive than ketone, which are more reactive than ester, then amide, and then carboxylates. Okay, now let us discuss some oxidizing agents, chromium-based reagents. Okay, you know, chromium trioxide, potassium dichromate, chromic acid. These are some of the chromium-based reagents we generally see in the lab and we generally use in lab. Okay, but the limitation with these chromium-based reagents is that they over-oxidize. Say when we have a primary alcohol, it gets oxidized to aldehyde. Okay, and if we have aqueous medium, because KMnO4 is potassium dichromate or chromic acid that is soluble in the water, and they react in water in aqueous medium preferably, so they over oxidizes. This aldehyde that is formed is further oxidized to the carboxylic acid. So that is the limitation of this chromium reagent. Okay. So over-oxidation take place, but this over-oxidation take place only because of the formation of this hydrate. If this hydrate is not formed, then over-oxidation will not take place. Okay. So how can we selectively oxidize a primary alcohol to an aldehyde stage only? Okay. There are some mild oxidizing agents and on chromium based also. Okay. You know, chromium trioxide, chromic acid, potassium dichromate. They are strong oxidizing agents. So we can decrease their reactivity. We can make them mild. Okay. In strongly acidic medium, they are even more reactive. Okay. So we can reduce their reactivity to some extent, and that can be done by making other reagents, that is PCC, pyridine chlorochromate. We treat chromium trioxide with pyridine and HCl salt. Okay, a salt is formed, that is orange colored salt. Okay, PCC, that is very selective and very mild. It only oxidizes primary alcohol to aldehyde only. Okay, but solvent used is dichloromethane or chloroform. Okay, chlorinated solvent is used, water is not at all used. Okay, this is another reagent, PDC, pyridine dichromate, pyridinium dichromate. Simply this dichromate is treated with pyridine only. Okay, but problem with this PDC is that it catches fire. Okay. So another but ruthenium based reagent is there which can selectively oxidize alcohol to an aldehyde is TPAP. Okay, tetrapropyl ammonium pereuthionate. Okay, it is from the iron family. Iron ruthenium is it can be used in just in catalytic amount, and it completes this oxidation process. Here, these reagents have to be used at least more than 1 millimolar amount. Okay, so that is the advantage this catalyst. Okay, this is the way how we can prepare PCC, pyridine chlorochromate. Pyridine is treated with chromium trioxide. Okay, this pyridine nitrogen attacks this chromium trioxide. We have this intermediate. When we treat with the HCl, pyridine gets converted into pyridinium ion, and the Cl negative replaces it. Okay, so this we have salt. Okay, pyridinium chlorochromate, that is selective for the oxidation of primary alcohol to aldehyde. Okay. Now, role of hydrate in oxidation of primary alcohol. As I mentioned earlier, water is totally responsible for the OH2 carboxylic acid. Chromic acid oxidizes, say, ethanol to acetaldehyde. Then, under acidic condition, its diol is formed. Okay, geminal diol is formed. This geminal diol get oxidized to the acetic acid. Okay. So let us have an example. What happens in our body? Okay, when we take ethanol. Okay, many people drink ethanol, and during election times you hear many news about that जहरीली शराब पीने से इतने लोगों की डेथ हो गई. Okay, so how we can remove this habit of drinking habit? Okay, there is a drug that is antabuse. This is a drug molecule. Okay, antabuse. और आप लोगों ने कई जगह पे एडवर्टाइजमेंट भी देखी होगी कि शराबी को बिना बताए शराब छुड़ाएं. Okay, simply you have written somewhere. Okay, so in that there are few drugs, and antabuse is one of them. Okay, what this drug does to a person? Okay, what happens actually in our body when we take ethanol? There is an enzyme alcohol dehydrogenase which oxidizes it. One hydrogen from here, one hydrogen from here is removed, and it is converted into acetaldehyde. Okay, this acetaldehyde is further converted by another enzyme, that is aldehyde dehydrogenase, and it gets converted into acetic acid. Okay, and acetic acid is used by our body for as a raw material for various cyclic processes. Okay, so this way, and in this process, lot of energy is also generated. Okay, so this is the normal process. When we take ethanol, it gets converted into the acetic acid in our body. Okay, and so acetic acid, it also confirms that acetic acid is not very harmful for our body if it is taken in small amount. Okay, because in the form of vinegar also we take some acetic acid. But what happens when we take this drug? This antabuse drug basically inhibits the action of this enzyme, aldehyde dehydrogenase. Aldehyde dehydrogenase. In that case, what happens? Our body converts this ethanol into acetaldehyde, but further oxidation does not take place. And once a person takes ethanol, it gets converted into acetaldehyde. Within 5 to 10 minutes, this acetaldehyde accumulates in our body so much that that person get affected very badly. He has intense flushing, nausea, dizziness, sweating, okay, throbbing headache, decreased blood pressure, and ultimately shock. He realizes that it is better not to drink alcohol. Okay, and if happens with him 1 or 2 times, he ultimately leaves the alcohol. Okay. Okay, here is another example. One question remained here. Okay, what happens when we take denatured alcohol or alcohol, say ethanol mixed with the methanol? Okay, what happens? Methanol, when it is contaminates the ethanol and people drink it, methanol gets converted into formaldehyde in our body, and which may be further oxidized to the formic acid. Okay, but both formaldehyde and formic acid, they react with our optic nerves and cause blindness. Okay, they cause blindness, and they also affect the nervous system also. Okay, so if it is taken methanol, contaminated alcohol is, if it is taken in less excess amount, then it may cause death also. Okay, so how can we treat? Suppose a person have drink contaminated methanol, contaminated ethanol. Okay, so definitely it will be converted into formaldehyde and formic acid. Okay, then it can be reversed by giving that person another good quality ethanol. Give him good quality ethanol. What happens in that case? Simple reaction take place, that formaldehyde get converted into acetal. Okay, ethyl acetal, full acetal formation take place. Okay, in our body there is lot of HCl. That formaldehyde get converted into acetal derivative, and that is not harmful. So this way we can remove this methanol poisoning. Okay, so chromium based reagents are basically harmful. Okay, they are harmful to the respiratory tract and they cause pulmonary sensitization. Okay, they even can cause lung cancer, nasal cancer, and sinus cancer. Okay, so generally chromium based reagents are avoided these days. So mild reagents are used, and one of them is TPAP. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, tetra isopropyl perleucinate. Okay, so that selectively oxidizes this primary alcohol to aldehyde. Okay, and this TPAP have to be used in just catalytic amount. At the same time, we have used a co-catalyst, that is NMO. This is NMO, N-methyl morpholine oxide. Okay, basically this NMO reoxidizes this ruthenate 4 back into the ruthenate 6. So overall, this reaction can be achieved by using just 5 mole% of the this ruthenate catalyst. Okay. Another mild reagent is the Dess-Martin periodinate, DMP. Okay. Dess-Martin periodinate, that is a weak oxidizing agent, and it is easily soluble in the solvents like DCM, chloroform, etc. Variety of solvents, it is easily soluble. Okay. So it also easily oxidizes the allylic alcohol to allylic aldehyde. You can see here again allylic alcohol to aldehyde, and simple alcohol can also be oxidized. Okay, so that is the advantage with this Dess-Martin catalyst. Okay, now enantioselective epoxidation. Okay, earlier by using the nucleophilic epoxidation or electrophilic epoxidation, if the starting material is not chiral, we are going to achieve a racemic product. Okay, but enantioselective epoxidation can be achieved by using the Sharpless condition. Okay, and Sharpless was awarded Nobel Prize for this in 2001. Okay, the reason he was given Nobel Prize was that the enantioselectivity is very important when we are going to synthesize a drug molecule. One enantiomer may be highly reactive, highly useful, and another may be toxic or non-useful. Okay, so in that case, that affect the cost of a drug and its other properties. And basically, this finding by Sharpless revolutionized the chiral synthesis also. That is why he was given the Nobel Prize. Okay. In this case, the epoxidation of only allylic alcohol take place. Okay. Sharpless condition cannot be applied to a normal alkene. Normal alkene cannot be oxidized. Okay. Allylic alcohol at allylic position OH is must. Okay, only then this reaction takes place. And we use a set of 3 reagents: TBHP, tertiary butyl hydrogen peroxide, titanium tetraisopropoxide, and plus or minus isomer of diethyl tartrate. Okay, this is the diethyl tartrate. Basically, this is the reagent that controls the complete enantioselectivity in this process. Okay, if we use a minus, okay, or enantiomer, this oxygen is transferred above the phase. If we use plus, it is transferred below the phase. Here is the transition state. In this transition state, you can see 2 molecules of titanium tetraisopropoxide, 2 molecules of plus or minus diethyl tartrate, and 1 molecule of TBHP are involved. Okay, so in this case, you can see oxygen can be transferred from this phase only. Okay. In another case, when we are using minus diethyl tartrate, reverse happens. Okay, so in main feature of Sharpless epoxidation is high asymmetric induction, and by looking at the structure of the reactant, we can tell about the structure or stereochemistry of the final product. Absolute configuration can be in advance. Okay, there are some examples. and their application in synthesis of some natural product. Okay, this is a molecule. It is an allylic alcohol. Okay, we epoxidize it by using the Sharpless condition. Here we are using minus diethyl tartrate. So this oxygen is transferred. Okay, and this epoxide is formed. Then we treat it with PDC. Okay, selective oxidation to aldehyde stage only. Okay, then we have Wittig reaction. Okay, Wittig reaction is result in formation of an alkene, but because this is unstabilized yelid, so in this case we will get a mixture of product. Major product will be Z alkene and minor will be the E alkene. Okay, so that is why this bond has been shown, that we get a mixture of two diastereomers. However, when we reduce it with say under catalytic condition, this double bond gets converted into single. Again, there is no problem. We get a single product. Okay, and this molecule is a dish parlor, and it is produced by some moths. Okay, and it is basically pheromone. Okay, so there is another application of Sharpless epoxidation in synthesis of a drug, that is propranolol. Okay, in this case also this is an allylic alcohol. You treat it with Sharpless condition minus diethyl tartrate, so oxygen is transferred above the face. Then this OH is treated with methyl chloride, means OMS is get converted to mesylate. That is a very good living group, and we have phenoxide or say naphthol oxide that acts as a nucleophile. In situ, this OH is converted into OMS, and this removes it, and we have this nucleophile attached here. Okay, then we can remove this trimethylsilyl group by using tetrabutyl ammonium fluoride. You know, deprotection of TMS group. TMS can be easily removed by using the fluoride ion. Okay, you can use potassium fluoride, tetrabutyl ammonium fluoride, any. Just use the fluoride ion. It selectively removes the trimethylsilyl group. Okay, so it removes it and it substitutes it, then this epoxide. Okay, and we get this drug. Okay, these are some more examples of Sharpless epoxidation. Okay, you can have this PPT from me, and then you can see. Now oxidation of alkene to form the diol. Okay, for this purpose, two reagents are recommended, and that is osmium tetraoxide and KMnO4. But okay, and toxical. In this case, pyridine is used as a catalyst. Okay, this cyclic osmate ester is formed. Then under aqueous condition, it gets hydrolyzed. We get a cis di. The why osmium tetraoxide is used? Osmium tetraoxide is a strong hydrolyzing agent. Okay, strong, and in this case, the substituent on the double bond does not matter. Whatever is the steric hindrance, this reaction takes place very easily. So that is the main advantage with osmium tetraoxide. Okay, in this case also reaction is regioselective. If we have two double bond, electron-rich double bond will attack, because in this case also same thing is followed. First alkene attack the oxygen atom. You can see alkene attack oxygen atom, then this oxygen atom back attacks the double bond. If we have two double bond, one is more electron rich, so that will react at a faster rate. So again, this example is important. We have a double bond, and at allylic position it is having OH, and that is above the plane. Okay, generally osmium tetraoxide react from the less hindered side, but if there is OH, okay, hydroxylation, cis hydroxylation will take place from the same phase. Okay, sorry, here it is up. I think there is some problem. It is from the back phase. I have to check this one, but it should be from the same phase. Okay, then hydroxylation of alkene with KMnO4. KMnO4 is a strong oxidizing agent, and it is highly its strength is maximum when the conditions are acidic. Then it is milder in neutral condition and mildest under the alkaline condition. Okay. So similarly, KMnO4 is also used for cis hydroxylation. Okay. This way we can achieve the vicinal cis diols. Okay. These are some more examples. Okay. Here is the summary. Then Prevost and Woodward hydroxylation. Prevost and Woodward hydroxylation are also used to convert an alkene into a diol. Okay, but Prevost reagent give the trans and Woodward give the cis product. Reagent is almost same, but in case of Prevost reagent, the anhydrous conditions are used, and we use iodine and silver acetate or silver benzoate in a ratio of 1:2. Okay, the explanation is here. Here is the mechanism. You can see first this alkene reacts with the iodine molecule. It attacks over it. This iodonium intermediate is formed. Then it is attacked by the acetate ion to give this intermediate. Then neighboring group participation takes place and it eliminates this iodide. Okay. And we have this cyclic intermediate. This strained intermediate determines we have anhydrous condition or Prevost condition. There is another molecule of acetate available or benzoate is available for attack. So it will attack this molecule and we get trans diacetate. If we carry out its hydrolysis, we get trans. However, if we use wet condition and only one equivalent of silver acetate or sodium benzoate, silver benzoate, okay, we get the cis product. So conditions determine the course of the reaction, whether the conditions are inert or conditions are dry condition or wet condition. Dry condition will give the trans product, wet condition will give the cis product, because here hydrolysis takes place at this stage itself. Okay. Now oxidation of alkyl chain of the benzene ring. As such, benzene ring is highly stable and it cannot be oxidized. However, it can be oxidized in the biological system, like in our body, benzene can be oxidized, can be epoxidized. Okay, but in lab, it is very difficult. Okay, it cannot be oxidized. But if a substituent is present in the benzene ring, say alkyl substituent, here it is methyl, ethyl, propyl or butyl, it can be oxidized by using the acidic KMnO4. But in all this case, we get the same product, benzoic acid, and another side product. Okay, benzoic acid is formed in all the cases. Actually, there will hydrogen must. Okay, oxidation of the benzylic hydrogen take place. If there are two alkyl substituent and both are having benzylic hydrogen, then it gets oxidized. But if there is persibutyl group, when there is no benzylic hydrogen, no take place, material remain unreacted. Okay. Here it is another interesting example. You can see here, this is the quinoline molecule. You know that in case of KMnO4, KMnO4 has property to react with the electron-rich system. What happens in case of KMnO4 mechanism? As you had seen, first alkene attacks or electron-rich system attack the KMnO4. Then it gets bonded with that. So in this case, you can see that out of these two rings, this ring is electron deficient. This benzene ring is more electron rich. So this ring will bind with the KMnO4 and it get oxidized. Okay, to get this 2,3-diacid. Okay, if we heat it further, what will happen? Decarboxylation will happen and this will be oxidized. This will be removed. Okay, and we have pyridine 3-carboxylic acid only. Okay. However, if we treat the same reactant with ozone, what happens in case of ozone? Ozone follow different mechanism. Okay, ozone follow 1,3 dipolar kind of cycloaddition reaction. Okay, and more electron deficient is the alkene or the system, more easily it will attack. So out of these two rings, this is electron deficient. So in this case, it will attack over here, okay, and this ring get cleaved, okay. Then benzocaine, this is the molecule that is benzocaine, and it is a local anesthetic, and it have a wide range of application. So how can we synthesize it? It can be synthesized from toluene by using a variety of reagent, okay. We can nitrate this molecule because NH2 group can introduce the benzene ring. The best way to introduce NH2 group is nitration. Nitrate it, then reduce it, okay. We nitrate it, ortho as well as para product is formed. We isolate them. This nitrotoluene is formed, para-nitrotoluene is formed. We reduce it with the under catalytic condition. We get this NH2. Okay. Now what is left? We have to convert this CH3 or methyl into CO2. Okay. आपने अभी देखा, we can oxidize methyl can be oxidized to COOH. Okay. And COOH can be converted into ester. Okay. Acidic KMNO4, we have this COOH. Then we can make ethyl ester by using esterification, and we have this benzocaine. Okay, this molecule is used as a appetite suppressant. Okay, and it is also used as a local anesthetic also. Okay, then we have another useful molecule, that is a saccharine. Though these days it has been banned in many countries. Okay, and this is a sweetener, and its sweetening index is around 300 to 400. Okay, it is more sweeter than sucrose, about 300 times. Okay, you can see in this molecule, here is a amide bond, here is also a sulfonamide bond, SO2NH. Okay, so how we can convert it, prepare it from the toluene? We can sulfonate it, and sulfonation takes place at ortho as well as para position, but para product is formed as the major product by treating with chlorosulfonic acid. Okay, when we treat it with chlorosulfonic acid, SO2Cl, this ortho as well as this para product is formed. Okay, then we can convert the sulfonyl chloride into sulfonamide simply by treating with ammonia, say in a reaction in a sealed tube. Okay, then we can oxidize this methyl group to the carboxylic acid by using KMNO4, acidic KMNO4. Okay, then we can just heat it, this molecule under the anhydrous condition, adding some dehydrating agent. Just after loss of water, we get this saccharine molecule. It is very easy to synthesize. You can see the starting material is toluene, which is very cheap. Okay, so this molecule is also very cheap. This saccharine is also cheap, and it is used in say beverages, cold drinks that you drink. Okay, and other soft drinks. It is used frequently. Its energy value is 0. Okay, it does not provide any energy to our body, but it provides taste. Okay, then we have discussed this already. Okay, oxidation with chromic acid. Okay, so just a summary of alcohols. Alcohols can be oxidized by using MnO2, magnesium dioxide. It is selective for the oxidation of allylic and benzylic alcohol. Okay, selective. Normal alcohol will not be oxidized. KMNO4. Okay, non-selective. Then this PCC, that is also selective. Okay, and these are other PDC, potassium dichromate. Okay, Jones reagent. They are also having less selectivity. Then DMSO oxalyl chloride, that is Swarno oxidation. DMSO is a very good oxidizing agent, and these days in modern chemistry, DMSO is used in large number of reactions as a oxidizing agent in combination with iodine, in combination with oxalyl chloride, DCC, or itself alone. It is a oxidizing agent. Okay, there are also silver-based, copper-based, like silver oxide, copper oxide, oxidation in nature available oxygen, chlorine also, that is a good oxide. Okay, so these are the various reagents for the oxidation of alcohols. Okay, now blood alcohol content. Okay. How we can detect a XYZ person have drink or not? Okay. There is a device, and that device contains nothing but simple potassium dichromate K2Cr2O7. A person is just asked to breathe into this mouthpiece. Okay. Then air goes through this tube into this bulb. Okay. In this region, in this glass tube, there is silica containing the potassium dichromate. Okay. As soon as the air blows through it and it back comes through it, the color it changes. They change that is red orange in color. If it changes the green, it means a person have taken alcohol. Okay, ethanol. And this is the overall reaction take place. This ethanol get oxidized, get converted into the acetic acid. Okay, and this chrome get reduced. Its color is green. Here, its color is the red orange. Okay. Then selective oxidation. How we can achieve selective oxidation? As I mentioned earlier, also we can use PCC. We can use MnO2. Okay. We can also use Schwann oxidation. That is an important process and important from net point of view. Okay. We use a set of reagents, DMSO in combination with oxalyl chloride, triethylamine and DCM. And reaction is carried out at -78 or -60 degree. Low temperature is essential for this reaction. And in this case, even just by smell, we can tell about whether a reaction has been completed. There is no need to check the TLC of a reaction. Okay. Here is the mechanism. Okay. So you can see here, we have a primary alcohol. Okay. We have DMSO, we have oxalyl chloride and a triethylamine. What we get a primary alcohol. Another compound is dimethyl sulfide. This dimethyl sulfide has smell. All sulfur containing some compounds have some little bit pungent smell. Okay, we can detect it very easily. Okay, so because of the smell of this dimethyl sulfide, we can tell about whether a reaction has completed or not. And another side products that are formed is carbon monoxide, CO2. Okay. Here is the mechanism of this reaction. DMSO exits in resonating form, and this oxygen can attack with the oxalyl chloride. Okay, this Cl gets eliminated, and we have this intermediate. Okay, this chloride ion then back attacks. Okay, because now this oxygen is converted into a good living group. It attacks over here. These electrons move here. This way CO2 is generated, these electrons move here, carbon monoxide is eliminated, and so overall this is the reactive intermediate, dimethyl chlorosulfonium. And once in a GATE exam, this question was asked, what is the intermediate formed during the Schwann oxidation? Okay, 3-4 options were given. So this is dimethyl chlorosulfonium intermediate that is responsible for this Schwann oxidation. Okay. Now this alcohol molecule attacks over this molecule, over this reactive electrophile. Okay. This sulfur get eliminated. We have this intermediate. Okay. Now we have to add triethylamine from outside. What happens? This triethylamine can abstract this methyl proton and this hydrogen also. But in actual, only this methyl proton is abstracted because it is more electrophilic. Region, this sulfur is positively charged, further linked with the oxygen. So first this proton is abstracted, this anion is generated here, methyl anion, then it abstracts proton alpha to the oxygen. Okay, and we get aldehyde. What is important? The important in this reaction is the sequence. Okay. We cannot simultaneously add these reactants in a reaction and reaction will take place. Actually, first we take DMSO, cool it to -78, then we add then we add oxalyl chloride dropwise to it. Okay, then we stir it for some time so that this complex is formed and this intermediate is generated. Then we add this alcohol from outside. Okay, Then after some time we add triethylamine from outside. So in this reaction takes place basically in a sequential manner. Okay. Otherwise, if we add them simultaneously, alcohol may react prior to this DMSO with this oxalyl chloride because it is a strong nucleophile. Okay. So sequence in this reaction matters. Okay. There are some examples of oxidation. Okay. Then there will is your oxidation. In this process, a ketone is converted into an ester, and again a peracid is used here. You can see here we are having this peracid having electrophilic oxygen atom. It either get inserted into this double bond or this double bond. Okay, but if it is unsymmetrical, say here is cyclohexyl, here is the methyl group. So there is possibility that this oxygen can be inserted to this side to give this, or inserted toward this side to give cyclohexyl. Okay, but it is determined by the migratory aptitude. Okay, relative migrating power of a substituent, how electron rich it is, and it has been found that the Aldrich hydride has the highest migrating aptitude, then tertiary alkyl, then secondary alkyl, which is equivalent to phenyl, then primary alkyl, and then methyl. Okay? So in this way, there will is oxidation take place. Overall, a ketone is converted into an ester, and this is the mechanism. Here, this oxygen attacks this electrophilic carbon of the ketone. We have this intermediate. Okay, then these electrons of the oxygen comes back, and this R group, either of this R or R dash, which is having higher migratory aptitude, will migrate through this oxygen atom, and we can have this ester molecule. Okay, and the peracid get converted into simple acid. Okay. Again, you can see here this example. If we have an aldehyde, okay, this was a ketone. Ketone get converted into an ester. But if we have aldehyde, you can see here CH bond, okay, CHO. So aldehyde get converted into a carboxylic acid because hydride has the highest migratory aptitude. Okay, there are some more examples. Okay. Suppose we have a cyclic system, what will happen? In that case also, oxygen atom will be inserted toward the substituent which is having higher migratory aptitude, which is more electron rich. So here you can say here it is methyl substituent, here it is hydrogen only. Okay, or you can say this carbon is di-substituted. So oxygen get inserted here, and ring expansion also take place. 5-member ring get converted into 6-member. 6-member get converted into the 7-member. Okay. Another example of oxidation of methyl ketone. Okay, methyl ketone. Earlier we converted ketone into ester. Here we can convert ketone into ketoaldehyde or diketone by using selenium dioxide as an oxidizing agent. Okay. Here is the mechanism. First, this ketone get enolized. That is why it is mentioned that methyl ketone or methylene ketone. Enolizable ketones can only be oxidized. Okay, you cannot oxidize say benzophenone. Okay, so first it get enolized, then from alpha position it attack the selenium dioxide, then dehydration take place. Okay, then addition of water take place. This selenium get removed, and we get a diketo compound or ketoaldehyde compound. Okay, so this is one application of selenium dioxide, that we can convert a methyl ketone into diketo compound. Another application of selenium dioxide is in conversion of allylic CH bond. Allylic CH bond can also be oxidized. Okay, this is allylic CH bond. This can also be oxidized to the allylic OH or allylic aldehyde also. Okay. This mechanism basically take place through a concerted mechanism, and it is basically a 4+2 cycloaddition reaction. We call it IN reaction. Okay. So this is the mechanism. Okay. Here, is again the mechanism of oxidation of the allylic CH with selenium dioxide. Here you can see we have two methyl group. So which will be oxidized? Okay. Remember, always the trans methyl group will be oxidized. Okay. The reason is here. That it depends upon the reaction proceed through a 4+2 cycloaddition mechanism, and the way the transition state can be formed easily. You can see if selenium dioxide have to approach from this side, it will face the steric hindrance. If it goes from this side, 2 electrons this and 2 electrons of this CH bond, 4 electrons and 2 electrons of selenium oxide. So they will react. Okay. So this is basically here 2 electrons this, 2 electrons this, and 2 electrons this. So this way 4 electrons of the allylic alkene and the 2 electrons of selenium dioxide participate in this reaction to give this allylic selenic acid. Okay. This allylic selenic acid then undergo 2,3 sigma tropic rearrangement to give this intermediate, which then can be hydrolyzed to give this allylic alcohol. Okay. And this allylic alcohol can be further oxidized by using second equivalent of selenium dioxide to aldehyde. Okay. So this is in reaction, and some questions have been asked in the past in NET and GATE exam. Okay. Here is another example of selective oxidation of allylic CH. You can see here we have this double bond. Here allylic CH, here is also allylic CH. Even here is also allylic CH. But this get oxidized. This is trans to this. Okay. Transition state will be favored from this side. Okay. So this allylic CH3 get oxidized to CHO. Okay. And we can reduce it further with LAH. Okay. These are the factors. This nucleophilic end of the alkene controls the selectivity. Okay. This phase have less steric hindrance. This phase have more steric hindrance. Okay. And here electrophilic addition to the selenium dioxide take place. So overall, the trans CH bond will be oxidized. Okay. Now let me skip this because we are already late. Okay. Hydroboration oxidation, you have already read it. Stereochemistry of hydroboration. Okay. Hydroboration is regioselective. You will always found that this BH2 get added to terminal carbon of alkene or whether it is alkyne. Okay. Reaction is regioselective, sorry, not specific, because in trace amount the other product is also formed. So reaction is regioselective, and this addition basically takes away, since BH3 itself is a Lewis acid, it is electron deficient and it cannot attack an alkene. But alkene is electron rich. First it attacks BH3, coordinate through this double bond with the BH3. Then this boron carbon become delta negative. Then electron density is transferred to the hydrogen. Then hydrogen become delta negative and it back attacks and a four-member transition state. Okay. Boron, there is very less difference between electronegativity of boron and hydrogen. Boron is 2.03, hydrogen 2.1. Okay, just little difference. But it is the alkene which basically attack over the BH3, which is electron deficient, but still it can act as a hydride transfer reagent. Okay. So first alkene attacks BH3, then BH3 transfer its hydrogen as hydride. Okay. So this H negative is transferred and this BH, and this addition is syn addition. Okay, you must remember. So when we have an unsymmetrical alkene, you will find that again syn addition take place. Okay, and this BH2 will add to the less substituted carbon atom. Okay, reason is that again the stability of a transition state. There is two possibility of formation of two transition state. When this BH2 attacks this carbon, here delta positive charge will be more stabilized because a more stable carbocation is more stable. Okay, so BH3 will bind this way and syn addition. This H that is coming from the BH3, this hydride and BH2 will be added syn to this double bond, and after hydrolysis this OH will remain cis. Okay, because the hydrogen peroxide will attack to this boron, not this carbon. It will attack to this boron, and same side this whole of this moiety will migrate. We will get the syn addition of hydrogen as well as, okay, this is the mechanism here, and this is in comparison to the reduction oxidation with the help of mercuric acetate. This is mercuric acetate. You will find that same substrate here we get a less substituted alcohol, here we get a more substituted alcohol. The reaction is, the mechanism is different in both the cases. Okay, here in mercuric acetate a clear carbocation is formed. Okay, but similar type of carbocation is formed, more substituted. Okay, in that case this hydride is transferred to this hydrogen, but in this case what is happening, this carbocation is attacked by the external nucleophile, that is the water. There is no internal transfer, anything transferred from mercuric acetate. Okay, so in this case this water molecules attacks this carbocation carbon, we get OH here. When we treat with sodium borohydride, it reduces and removes this mercuric acetate. Okay, and we get a more substituted alcohol, while in this case we get less substituted alcohol. Okay, sometimes 2-3 questions have been previously asked, reduction with boron and reduction with mercuric acetate. Okay, let me skip this slide. Okay, oxidation with ozone. Okay, ozone is a very good oxidizing agent. In fact, that is why we say ozone is toxic in nature. Okay, it is present in the environment at the ground level in trace amount, and it is toxic in nature because it is a very, very strong oxidizing agent. Okay, this is the ozone. You can see here its two resonating structures, and it is a very good 1,3 dipole, and it can easily react any electron deficient system. Okay, any electron deficient alkene or alkyne, it can easily react through 1,3 dipolar cycloaddition reaction. That is also a 4+2 cycloaddition reaction. Okay, and it in fact causes the cleavage of a carbon double bond, introducing the 2 oxygen atoms, converting them into 2 carbonyl compounds. They may be 2 ketones, they may be 1 aldehyde, 1 ketone, or 1 ketone, 1 carboxylic acid. Okay, so that depend upon the further conditions. How this reaction takes place? Basically, this alkene react with the ozone to form the molozonide, then it cleaves to form a true ozonide. Then this true ozonide, if we treat it with the reducing condition like zinc and water, zinc is in elemental form and it acts as a reducing agent, it is a source of electron, or dimethyl sulfide, sulfur is also a source of electron. Okay, so if we provide reducing environment, then reductive products are formed. But if we provide the oxidizing environment like H2O2, if the possibility of formation of alcohol, possibility of formation of an aldehyde that get further oxidized to acid. Okay, while in case of zinc, water, or dimethyl sulfide, we get an aldehyde and a aldehyde. Reason is the reducing conditions. Okay, similarly, if we have a cyclic alkene, okay, again this bond get cleaved. At one end we have a keto, and at one end we have an aldehyde. Okay, zinc. So it depends upon the conditions that we are using, whether we are using reducing condition or oxidizing conditions. You all know that palladium hydrogen is used as a reducing agent. Okay, palladium hydrogen used as a reducing agent, but palladium is also a very good oxidizing agent. Okay, The reason is that palladium has very, very high affinity for hydrogen. It can absorb hydrogen and it can adsorb hydrogen. First it adsorbs hydrogen on its surface, then it starts absorbing hydrogen, and palladium can absorb about 1000 times of its own volume the hydrogen gas. Palladium can cleave molecular hydrogen into atomic hydrogen and then can bind over it. Okay, so when हेलो, हाँ सुन, हेलो, उस पे आ रही है, आवाज आ रही है माइक। हाँ ठीक है, ठीक है, ओके। So palladium can also be used as a oxidizing agent. If we don't provide hydrogen from outside, okay, this ring get oxidized. It can remove hydrogen from this molecule. Okay. Similarly, it can remove hydrogen from here, and it can aromatize. It can convert a non-aromatic system into the aromatic system. Similarly, you can see here dihydroisoquinoline. It can be oxidized by using PDC xylene. We are not providing hydrogen here, and it can be oxidized. Okay. So because we are already late, okay. So I am going to finish. In addition to this, we can also, I am summarizing the earlier things. Okay, we can also use TEMPO as the oxidizing agent. In addition, we can use DDQ also as a very good oxidizing agent, and there are several reducing agents, and at 3 different levels reduction can be carried out, okay, by catalytic hydrogenation, dissolving metal reductions, and metal hydride reductions. Okay, dissolving metal, this is the last topic. Okay, so we will discuss just Birch reduction because that is important from net point of view. Okay, we use sodium, lithium or potassium in liquid ammonia and alcohol as a source of proton. Lithium, sodium or potassium is a source of electron. Okay, and the aromatic system get reduced to the non-conductive. Okay, let us see some example. We have electron withdrawing substituent and we have another electron withdrawing substituent here. Okay, reaction is regioselective basically. When we have electron withdrawing substituent, a non-conjugated, this is non-conjugated with the electron withdrawing substituent, non-conjugated with the electron withdrawing substituent. However, if we have electron releasing substituent, the double bond will be in conjugation with that substituent. Like methoxy, this double bond is in conjugation. Similarly, if we have multiple electron releasing substituents or electron withdrawing substituents, okay, if we have multiple electron releasing substituents like methyl as well as methoxy, both are electron releasing, the product will be formed where both the double bonds are in conjugation with both the electron releasing substituents. Okay. However, what happens when there is one electron releasing and one electron withdrawing substituent? Okay, in that case, electron withdrawing substituent will control the selectivity of a reaction, and reaction will take place according to the electron withdrawing substituent. Okay, and a non-conjugated to the COOH group, that product will be formed. Okay, the mechanism is important in this case. You can see here the electron donor substituent, like we have methyl, methoxy or amine here. Okay, first metal transfer through this aromatic system. So it attack at the ortho position or it can attack at the meta position, and we have an intermediate radical anion. Okay, this step is the rate limiting step, formation of radical, and you must remember that first orthoprotonation takes place. This orthoprotonation indicates that actually in case of Birch reduction, attack at the meta position takes place, anion is formed first here. Okay, and first protonation takes place at the ortho position. Okay, then second electron is transferred, anion is formed, then metaprotonation takes place. Okay, this anion formation is kinetically controlled. Okay, so sometimes question is asked, you are given one equivalent of alcohol, then external electrophile. So in case of electron releasing substituent here, the electrophile, second electrophile will attack at the meta position. Okay. Similarly, opposite to this, in case of electron withdrawing substituent like COH, ester, ketone, amide, cyano, or there is another aryl ring. In that case, first after the attack of this, and that attack take place either at this para position or at the ipso position. Okay. In that case, radical anion is formed. After the formation of this radical anion, first protonation will always happen at the para position. Okay, and then another anion will be formed. Another proton will come at the ipso position where the already substituent is attached, or some external electrophile will come here. Okay, so this is the mechanism, and it is, you can see here. In this case, we have ester here. We treat with sodium in liquid ammonia, tertibutanol. That is a source of proton, just 1 mole, and then we add external electrophile from outside. Okay. So what happens? First protonation takes place at the para position. Okay, and then this anion attacks over it. Okay, and then ipso substitution will take, not ipso substitution, but alkylation at the ipso position will take place. Okay, so these are some more examples of Birch reduction. Okay, with this, I like to conclude my presentation. Okay, so finally, I would like to acknowledge the Vice Chancellor of our university, Professor R.P. Tiwari, which is our newly appointed Vice Chancellor and very active person. Our head of the department, Dr. Vinod Pathania, other faculty members of the department, all of my PhD students, and I would like to acknowledge the members, all the members of organizing committee, especially Sandeep ji and other faculty members. Okay, and I also acknowledge the financial support from the various funding agencies like SARB, DST, and DST FISC for instrumental facility. And finally, thanks to all of you for bearing me for nearly 1 hour and 45 minutes. So thank you all of you. If there is any question, I will share this PPT. I will send this PPT to the Sandeep, and that can be shared with the students. Okay, so that there are further more slides also. Okay, yes. Any question from the audience?
Well, thank you, sir. It was really an enlightening lecture. I now the platform is open for the questions and any query if you have related to today's talk, as well as related to the competitive exam or something you wish to ask Dr. Virender. Well, no question means everything is clear. So I particularly would like to highlight that usually the professor of the Dr. Virender's stature, the people used to deliver the lecture regarding their the research work they are conducting in their lab. But instead he prefers to give something related to the books or theory that you usually learn in your master's or bachelor's level. It is something against the flow thing. So I really appreciate this structure from Dr. Virender, as I would like to add that the wide window where he includes the research as well as the uh, subject knowledge of the chemistry he is delivered today. It is really an enlightening experience for all of us. So it is also an learning for our younger students that if you need not to be you have to be good not only in the one thing side by side of the research as well as the teaching. You have to excel in everything, and that will be achieved only by the hard work. You can see the first slide of Professor Virender. See how much time he have cleared the net JRF, and that shows the clarity of the concept he has regarding chemistry, plus the H index as well as the I-10 index. The total citation of Professor Virender, it shows the a balanced combination of both the research as well as the teaching. Usually the people, once they engage into the research, the teaching part remains something back, and those who are engaged like we are in colleges, the research part goes back. So it is a combination, the both combination that the we can learn from Dr. Virender. Now I would like to request our young faculty member Dr. Suman to present formally a vote of thanks to for today's lecture. Dr. Suman, platform is yours.
Thank you, Akshay sir. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Virender, what a wonderful session it was. We are very grateful that you have spared your time from your busy schedule for such a nice talk or a lecture that enlightened us and our students on the really important topic, that is the reagents in the organic synthesis. I hope this lecture will be very much helpful for our students in NET exams and other competitive examinations. You have explained very clearly different oxidizing agents, reducing agents, their regioselectivity, stereospecificity, and chemospecificity, all in a very much compiled way. Our students are very much fortunate to hear from such an eminent researcher and a teacher. Your ideas and way of explanation made this topic very much easy to understand. We appreciate your work, your contribution in the field of research as well as in the field of teaching. We will be seeking your cooperation in the future also, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you, Akshay ji, and thank you, Sandeep ji, and for giving me this opportunity. Okay. Actually, it is easier for a teacher or a researcher for me to deliver his research work itself. But I thought that that will go over the head of the MSc students, and they will not be able to understand anything. Okay, so that is why, because their maybe final exams will be near, and in future, in 2 or 3 months, they will be appearing for NET and GATE exam. So I thought it will be better that they have some revision of their MSc course. So that is why, that was the reason I selected those. That, yeah.
Yes, sir. This topic will be very much helpful in competitive exam like NET exam. Yes. Again, thank you very much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Professor Sandeep Kumar, President, Chemistry Association, Dayal Singh College, for his kind words.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you very much, madam. I, Sandeep Kumar, President, Chemistry Association, Dayal Singh College, Karnal, on the behalf of Chemistry Department of Dayal Singh College, Karnal, would like to render our thanks to invited speaker. Dr. Virender Singh, working as Associate Professor in Department of Chemistry, Central University of Punjab, Batinda, for such an informative talk on reagents in organic synthesis. In this, he explained the very useful application of reagents, and he explained beautifully how these reagents are the integral part of organic chemistry. and play a vital role in achieving a desired transformation. In fact, reagents constitute the backbone of organic chemistry, and they are used in synthesis of drug molecule, medicine, polymeric materials, and other useful material of daily life. I firmly believe and sure that this will prove to be beneficial to the students in the long run and open new and bright future career perspective. It would also pave a new and innovative path of research for them altogether. I believe that these type of invited talks should be organized for the students periodically so that they could be made aware of the new research areas in the subject of chemistry. This will motivate and cultivate their zeal and enthusiasm to make chemistry as their research field option. I would also like to extend my thanks to my colleagues of the Department of Chemistry who have made this event successful by their active involvement and cooperation. And last but not the least, I on behalf of whole chemistry department would like to extend our thanks and gratitude to the students. Without them, this event would not have been successful as it is in the present form. They have not only attended the lecture but also actively participated in it and gained maximum from it. Thank you very much, sir. And again, thank you very much, Dr. Virender Singh, for your valuable time, sir.
Thank you, Sandeep ji. Thank you so much. And thank
Over
you
to
all the members of organizing committee.
Akshay.
And thank you, sir. See you in future also.
Before leaving, I would like to request that every one of you please on your camera. We will like to have a group photo. Please, all of you, please on your camera. Sharing करके ही करना. So this is a special feature of the Microsoft Teams wherein all of you will be feeling like you are sitting in a cinema hall. So I request all of you, please. Please on your camera, all of you. So on this note, we will promise you that we will further engage in bringing such eminent speakers like Professor Virender, and I would also like to thank Professor, especially Professor Virender. And
thank you, Akshay ji.
From next year on, we are starting a chemistry honors school. So we will like to use the experience of Professor Virender regarding all the facilities or something that can be we can have from Dr. Virender. In the last, I request Professor Sandeep Kumar to please share the feedback link. Sir, you have shared. I request all of you, all the attendees, to please fill this share feedback link. And it is for your information also that Professor Sandeep will share the video of this whole lecture. This whole lecture is being recorded, and the whole of the lecture will be shared with you on the Microsoft Teams in your respective classes. So you can watch it as many times as for your benefit, because the slides which Professor Virender have shared, each and every slide contains the questions of the CSIR as well as from the GATE exam. So it will be beneficial not only for the student, but I think it will be beneficial also for our faculty members, especially the younger faculty members. So on this note, I thank you all for joining this lecture, and special thanks to Professor Virender. We will look forward in the
Thank you, sir.
future.
Thank you.
You are for you regarding your suggestions and your collaboration. Similarly, you have today you have collaborated with us. Thank you, sir. And on this note, I like to thank you all. So we can leave now. Thank you, Virender sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you, sir.
SP
Thank you,
Bhatti
Sandeep.
sir. Thank you, SP Bhatti sir, and all the faculty members from our department. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Akshay.